Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about sweeteners. I had some good questions from my last videos on Facebook and just wanted to kind of answer some of the questions. And the main one I got that I thought needed a little bit more explanation was from one of my college friends, Melissa Springfield. Thanks, Melissa, for leaving a comment. So she was asking me about sweeteners, specifically in regards to honey, agave versus sugar. What's the difference? But I'm going to go into a little more detail, bring that a little further, and bring in the artificial sweeteners. So I'm Dr. Philip Oob. I'm a practicing functional medicine doctor here in Austin, Texas, and I'm going to talk to you about some sweeteners. So sugar is sugar. That's the main take-home message, is that it doesn't matter what form sugar comes into the body still sees it as sugar, and the sugar stimulates the insulin stimulates the liver to make more cholesterol, and then it also tells your body to store more fat. Insulin is our kind of, we're well-fed state. It's the hormone that tells the body, hey, plenty of food is around, go ahead and store, make extra cholesterol. And that's been one of the things that people have missed. We've been on this fat-free mantra for a long time to lower cholesterol levels, and people have gone so far as to eat zero cholesterol in order to try to improve their cholesterol levels. But the majority of cholesterol in your body, and by majority I mean 90% of it, is actually made by your liver. And the reason it's being made by the liver is because cholesterol is just an energy source. It's an energy source that feeds your brain, that feeds your muscles. It's how your body delivers fat to your tissue. We don't just eat fat and it magically appears in the tissue. We eat fat, that fat is stored into chylomicrons, which are brought to the liver, and then the liver makes them as packages that then go out to the tissues to burn energy. And those energy particles are called LDL and so-called bad cholesterols. But they're not really bad, they're just energy. Now, if you have too much energy floating in the bloodstream, then maybe that is a bad idea. So the main thing that stimulates production of the cholesterol is insulin. And what stimulates insulin? Carbs and sugar. Carbs equals sugar, sugar equals carbs. There's really not much difference. Now, we can fine-tune that word and say that there are healthier carbs, but for this purpose, I mainly want you to look at a carb as a carb, as a sugar as a sugar. So that was a little off topic to talk about sweeteners, but that was a main reason why I'm gonna kind of harp on agave and honey and all that. So the main question was, is honey and agave basically a better sweetener than sugar? And the true answer is no. They're basically all sugar. Is it a fraction better because it's not powderized sugar that's highly refined and whitened and bleached and all that? Yeah, honey's a little better. Honey and agave are a little better than powdered white sugar. I mean, sugar looks like cocaine. That should tell you something that it's probably not a good idea anyway. But I'm not going to tell you that honey and agave are excellent sources of nutrition. It's basically just sugar. And if you think about how nature intended sugar and honey and agave, it kind of makes sense, right? If you were to find this much honey, so this is some Premier Research Labs, Canadian gold honey, delicious stuff, but still sugar. If you were to try to get this much honey, you would have to fight a swarm of bees to get to it. Now, luckily, there's no bees around this container, so I don't have to fight the bees for it. But nature, we were not intended to have easy access to sugar. If you wanted an apple, for God's sake, you either had to find one on the ground or you had to climb a tree to go get one. Sugar's not supposed to be easily obtainable to us. Nowadays, we can get it by the pound in the grocery store. But anyway, the main take-home message is that honey is just sugar. It might be a slightly better version of it. So if you're gonna use a sugar to sweeten your coffee, your tea, or whatever it is, my point would be use as little as possible and none if you can get away with it. If you're used to drinking highly sweetened coffees and teas and stuff, it will take a little while to get used to it. I know I was guilty of that, and I slowly weaned myself down to where I don't really need any stevia or anything in my coffee anymore, but I do still need cream. Still working on that part. So if you can wean down on your sugar slowly, you'll notice that your taste buds will change and adapt to the lower sugar intake that you're doing. And just take your time, because remember, this is a marathon. No one's planning to die tomorrow, and so we're planning to live a long time. So even if you get to that goal 3 months, 6 months down the road, then it's still a success. So agave is not really any different. Agave is still a sugar. Granted, it's packaged a little differently, but it's still a sugar, and so it still goes to the liver. It still stimulates insulin and still creates higher cholesterol and fat deposition. So the take-home message is a sugar is a sugar. It doesn't matter how it's processed. Now, I want to make one more point about honey that people often use in the allergy world. And so this is some Texas honey made here in Texas by the bees here in Texas. And so frequently people will hear that you can use local honey to help treat allergies. This is a little different and maybe a little hyped up by the bee industry or honey industry, I don't know. The idea is that if you're allergic to cedar or ragweed or pollen, whatever is floating in the air, bees pollinate flowers, and they collect that pollen and then they make honey out of it. So the idea is that if you can slowly introduce yourself to an antigen or an allergen, then you're less likely to be allergic to it. And so that's the idea behind putting local honey into your coffee or tea or whatever in order to slowly get that antigen in your body. It's basically the same idea as the allergy drops and allergy shots these days, except the allergy drops and shots are kind of individualized, tailored to you. So that's going to be a more specific therapy. So I'm not the biggest fan of that, mainly because I don't want you eating the sugar, and I believe that a lot of allergies are actually triggered by inflammation, which is triggered by sugar. And so if you start cutting out the sugar and the glutens and the dairies, then your allergies are likely to get better anyway. But that's a whole nother separate topic. The final topic I want to talk about in this video is the sweeteners. So I used to love me some good old sweeteners. So I drank plenty of sodas in my youth, and they were not diet. And then later, probably in undergrad to med school, I switched to the diet sodas thinking that was so much more healthy. Well, I was still overweight. In fact, I hit my peak weight while on diet soda. And so I always thought those were healthier. I finally kicked them within the last year, and I'm doing great on that. But the main thing to take home is, why are diet sodas so bad for you? And not just diet sodas. I mean artificial sweeteners instead. And by artificial sweeteners, I include stevia. So that is stevia, Splenda, Equal, Sweet and Low, all of the artificial sweeteners. They're all bad, so to speak. I'd say if you're going to use a sweetener at all, an artificial sweetener, at least use stevia because it is from a natural plant. It is in its whole form. Now, a caveat to that is there is a brand name stevia called Truvia, which you can't patent a plant like that. So the Truvia molecule or the Truvia sweetener is actually a manipulated stevia. So that's one of the only ones where you don't really want to get the brand name stevia. You want to get the good old-fashioned generic HEB or whatever stevia. Now, the caveat to stevia is that if you were to buy a stevia plant and try to use it as a sweetener, it takes a good bit to actually sweeten something. When they powderize it and make it into packets, they can put a whole bunch into a packet. But the main thing is that stevia is still an artificial sweetener. And so let's talk about why artificial sweeteners are a problem. I haven't done a ton of research into this, but one study that I do know of compared people that drank regular soda to people that drank diet soda, and this has been repeated multiple times. But the theme of the message is one group had regular soda, one group had diet soda, and the diet soda people actually gained more weight than the people that were drinking regular soda. So I don't want to act like I've got it ironed out and know why that is, but there are some theories that revolve around why that is the case. And so even though that study revolved around Coke and soda, I'm going to extrapolate that to include all artificial sweeteners, including stevia. So the idea and the leading theory behind it, at least the one I subscribe to the most, is that sugar is sugar to your brain. It doesn't know that calories aren't coming. So if you put stevia in your coffee, your brain thinks that sugar is coming. And there's something called incretins that we release whenever we taste sugar. So whenever you put sugar in your mouth, it goes to your brain, which goes to your organs and says, hey, sugar is coming. Then if the sugar hits the stomach and gets into the bloodstream, then the actual insulin is fully released. But there is a minor amount of insulin that's released even with the artificial sweeteners. So let's play that out a little bit. So say I have stevia and I drink some and my brain goes, wow, sugar's coming. Let me release a little bit of insulin. And so it releases a little bit of insulin, but no sugar shows up. So the insulin rises. When the insulin rises, what happens? The blood sugar goes down because no sugar is coming. So when the blood sugar goes down, what does the body do? It says, I'm hungry because my sugar's low and I need to eat something. And so then it stimulates this appetite that, hey, I need to eat some sugar. And so that's the theory behind why artificial sweeteners actually cause you to gain more weight than regular sweeteners. Because if you drink so if you put sugar in your coffee, you taste the sugar, it releases the incretins, the sugar hits the stomach, then you release insulin, the insulin rises, but the sugar rises too. And so naturally they will fall together because there was sugar around, and you won't get as such a hunger response. So many of you out there that are carboholics, we're addicted to carbs. As Americans, that is the number one thing we struggle with. And I'd say as human beings, we easily struggle with carbs. But if you want to get off of carbs, the main way to get off of carbs is to remove as much sweetened stuff as you can possibly get out of your diet. You want to get to where you bite into a strawberry and you go, wow, that is a sweet strawberry. Or a raspberry or blueberry. When fruit tastes sweet, you know you're in the right place. So I guess I'm going to get off on a tangent with fruit, because people always ask me, well, fruit is sugar, so should I avoid fruit too? I never encourage people to avoid fruit. Nature packages sugar so much better than HEB and bees do by the mass. So whenever you eat a fruit, if you think about, if you eat an apple, let's say an apple is about 100 calories, and you were to eat a slice of bread. If you were to eat each of these, which one do you think it would take longer to eat? It's going to take longer to chew and eat the apple than that slice of bread. And so that makes a big difference to your body, because if you eat that slice of bread, you get a quick sugar spike, you get a quick insulin spike, and then the sugar's gone and the insulin's still up. And what's going to happen? The sugar goes down, and then you get hungry again, and so you got to eat. And so if you're addicted to carbs, it's because you're riding the insulin roller coaster, and it's mostly going to revolve around artificial sweeteners and real sugar, not around fruit. If you eat that apple, you're going to have to chew it for a few minutes. That food's going to get down to the stomach, and then that sugar's not readily accessible to the body. And so the stomach actually has to churn that sugar and break it down and then slowly absorb the sugar. So instead, when you eat fruit compared to a slice of bread or sugar in a packet, your sugar's going to have this nice even keel slope, and the insulin's going to have this nice even keel slope also. Whereas when you eat the loaf of bread, high sugar, high insulin, sugar drops, insulin's high, I'm hungry. Make sense? So fight the carb cravings. If you're trying to get rid of your carb cravings, the first 10 days are going to be the hardest. But if you want to just hunker down, white knuckle through it, increase your fat intake, drop your carb intake, by the time you get to that 10th day, you will notice that you don't crave carbs that much. Now, we're human. We always crave calories. So I'm not going to say that you're never going to have carb cravings again. But that urge to just eat sugar, that's overpowering, and you're unable to fight it, is from the insulin and sugar roller coaster. So I hope this video helps as far as your sweeteners and sugars and things and what to do. The main take-home message is limit your sweeteners, limit your sugars as much as possible, and add fat in instead. That's always my message. So please feel free to leave any comments. I've enjoyed the comments. It gives me an idea of what my next video should be about. So please don't hesitate to leave me a message.